Good evening, good evening, good evening. Praise the Lord, everybody. Praise the Lord, everybody. Tonight we are back with our study of the gospel of inclusion. So I want to give everybody a few moments to continue to invite others to join us tonight. I do want to give you a few moments to press like and press share want to give you a few moments to text anybody who needs to hear this gospel of inclusion study. All right, but we want to make sure we get at least 20 people on tonight for the study. Again, welcome, welcome, welcome to Empowerment Liberation Cathedrals Word Wednesday, and we're always excited to have each and every one of you. Good evening to those who are joining us on YouTube. Good evening to those who are joining us on Facebook. Good evening to those who are joining us on TikTok. We are so glad to have you. Again, we're talking about Bishop Carlton Pearson's Gospel of Inclusion on tonight. All right, and so we have been out for about 3 weeks, I guess, and have not talked about the gospel of inclusion, but we're so happy to come back and talk with you tonight. And so we have a great study for you on tonight, and I am excited about all that God is going to share with us tonight during our study time of the gospel of inclusion. So I want you to get everybody you know on tonight to join us for our study time with the gospel of inclusion. Again, welcome, welcome, welcome to all of those who are just joining us with the gospel of inclusion. Again, we want to remind you that we are preparing for our church anniversary. And so we are celebrating 10 years. 10 years of ministry at Empowerment Liberation Cathedral. We're celebrating 10 years of being obedient and following God. We're celebrating 10 years of reviving, renewing, and restoring God's people. We're celebrating 10 years of hearing from God and knowing that God is going to do great and marvelous things through the works of our hands at Empowerment Liberation Cathedral. We're celebrating 10 years of forming and shaping leaders and sending leaders forth. We are celebrating all that God has done for Empowerment Liberation Cathedral over these last 10 years. Okay. And so I want you to know that we need your help in our celebration. We need your help. And so we're asking if everyone could participate in Empowerment Liberation Cathedral's anniversary fundraiser. And so we want you to know that we want you, those of you who are friends of ELC, we want you to be a sponsor. We want you to be a supporter. We want you to be a patron. And so you can support ELC by being a $40 patron, a $50 patron, or a $100 sponsor. Now, those of you who are on TikTok, you cannot see the ways in which that's listed on the screen. You can give. You can give at $ELC Church, $ELC Church. And so we want you to be a patron with us. We want you to be, hey, Coco, we want you to be a patron. And so a patron is someone who donates $40. A patron is someone who donates $50. If you don't have $40, just send what you can and say, hey, I want to be a patron for the anniversary. And we're going to put your name in the anniversary book, okay? And so we need you all to send in your donations tonight. You can send those in at Cash App, $ELC Church. Thank you so much, Deacon Sylvester, $ELC Church. You can send those patron donations in. Patrons and friends of ELC, you can send those to Cash App, $ELC Church, $ELC Church. Now, once again, if you don't have $40, if you don't have $50 to be a patron, we still welcome you to support our anniversary. And so we will receive whatever you are able to give. Also, if you are able to do $100, now y'all remember the old time anniversaries where the folks, especially Women's Days, Men's Days, the people will come up with their $100 donation. If you are able to donate $100, we will list you as a sponsor in our book, okay? And so we want our friends of ELC, we want our members of ELC to get involved and make sure that you are helping us to raise money for the anniversary. This is the only time per year that y'all see Bishop come on and continue to ask people to be a sponsor, to be a patron, or just to give, okay? And so we need you to give. And some of y'all can say, hey, I'm giving, in memory of Dr. K. I'm being a patron in memory of Dr. K. I'm being a sponsor in memory of Dr. K. Because y'all know Dr. K would have already have written y'all and asked y'all to send some money to her church. Okay. And so we need you today. Good evening to all of those who are just coming on to TikTok. We need you today to make sure that you are giving. Dr. Audrey Carr, how are you? And so we want to solicit your donations. Gina Johnson, good evening, good evening, good evening. Good evening to everybody who has come on tonight. And we're so happy to, again, bring back the lesson of the gospel of inclusion. Okay, so we're going to have a good lesson tonight, but I want to let y'all know that tonight we have to talk about anniversary. Anniversary is coming around the corner. It will be here before you know it. And so I want to make sure that we give you all the opportunity to be a sponsor, have your name in the book, and that anniversary service is on Sunday, May 5th. Okay, and so we need your support. Thank you so much, Deacon Sylvester, for sharing that with us. And so again, if you are just tuning in, you can be an anniversary patron by giving $40 or $50 to the church. Our church 10-year anniversary is Sunday, May 5th. And so we're asking you, you can give those donations. Say, I'm giving in because this was Dr. K's church. I'm giving, hey, Zeal, I'm giving because, I know Dr. K would already be asking me, hey, can you give to my church? Okay, so we need some of Dr. K's supporters to be patrons and have your name in the book in memory of Dr. K. And so that's $40 or $50 to Cash App, $ELC Church, $ELC Church, or you can give to Givelify. We have the app. You can go and find Empowerment Liberation Cathedral on Givelify. Thank you, Zeal, for the green and pink hearts. And so you can give on Givelify or you can give on Tidely. And that number is 833-717-0242. Okay. So again, I wanted to make sure I brought the anniversary information to you because we are preparing. We are very close to anniversary. 10 years of ministry here at Empowerment Liberation Cathedral. We have had some great years at ELC. And so I just want to make sure that I give you an opportunity to get your name in our souvenir book. We will have a souvenir book. And when y'all see the QR codes on the screen on Sunday, don't just look at it. Okay, somebody make sure you are scanning the QR code on the screen on Sundays. Okay, TikTok, we don't have it on TikTok, but we do have it on the Facebook and the YouTube. So when you see the QR code, please scan the QR code, especially if it's a special Sunday, because we have the book where we made it so everybody can look at the book. And so for Anniversary Sunday, we will have the QR code for the souvenir book on the screen so that members at a distance, we're going to email it to everybody as well. But for those people who are supporters of ELC, friends of ELC, you can get a chance to see the book, and you may, if you're a patron, you will be able to see your name in the book. Okay. And so that's why we do that. So please, please, please make sure that you are looking to see when we have the QR code on the screen, and make sure that you scan the QR code. Okay. So we don't just put it up there to be putting it up there. We have the QR code up there for a reason, and it's for you. Okay. And we can go back and see the numbers who have scanned the QR code. And believe me, Bishop is a numbers person. I'm an engineer. That was my undergraduate degree. And so I'm a numbers person. So I'm always going to go back and see how many people scan the QR code. Okay. So please, 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 I'm telling y'all tonight, please make sure you scan the QR code when you see it on the screen because it's there for a reason, okay? And usually it's going to be the entire program for the service. So for anniversary, you'll have the entire souvenir booklet. So all patrons, people who donated, if you can only donate $25, if you donated $25, if you donated $40, $50 as a patron, your name will be listed in that book and everybody will see your name. If you gave $100, you'll be considered a sponsor for the ELC anniversary. And so your name will be listed in the sponsor section. All right. If your company took an ad in the book, we will list your company. You'll have a whole one-page ad. All right. So I need you all to make sure that you scan the QR code so that you can see it. All right. But again, we need patrons, those people who want to be patrons on behalf of Dr. K, who we know would already have called, would already have been soliciting. Look, she would have had her own video out already. I want you to make sure that you put on there, I'm a patron in support of Dr. K, okay, who is not with us, but I know she would have asked me already. Y'all know she would have asked you, okay? All right, so also tidely, the number is 833-717-0242. You can text the word give to that number, okay? So thank you so much, Deacon. I'm going to put that on the screen. They're helping me to remember what information I'm supposed to be giving out. So again, tidely is 833-717-0242. You can text the word give and make sure when you give now, you put a note on there that says this is for anniversary. I'm a patron. And so if you don't have a person that you're being a patron of, you can say I'm a patron of Bishops and we'll put you on the list. Okay. So tonight, look, y'all had plenty of time to read this book. We are looking and reading the gospel of inclusion. All right. So tonight I'm going to begin chapter 3. I don't remember where we stopped, but we're going to start in chapter 3 tonight. All right. Is that all right with everybody? We're going to start in chapter 3. Okay. And the people in TikTok, I couldn't find the background. So they're looking at me as if I'm on the beach somewhere. And so we praise God for that. Okay. All right. So chapter 3, we're going to begin here. I love here where Bishop Carlton Pearson, and y'all get your books out. Those people who have the books, y'all know this is class. Y'all supposed to have a class. Y'all supposed to have your books with you when you come to class. And so, you know, we do it at ELC where it's a real study. We are intense and we are intentional and we're making sure that we're getting all that God has to give us in these studies. All right. And so make sure you're pressing like, make sure you're pressing the hearts, and make sure you are sharing because we need people to get this on tonight. Okay. Good evening to all the folks who are coming in on TikTok. Y'all help us to get the likes up on TikTok and make sure that we are getting up to the FYP, the For You page. Okay. Yeah. I think you can hit likes on Facebook as well and help us to get more people on to the live on Facebook. All right, so now Bishop Carlton Pearson, he goes really deep in this particular chapter. I love this chapter, so we're going to take it. Good evening to everybody on TikTok. We're going to take this chapter a little slow because Bishop Carlton Pearson wants to make sure, I believe in this chapter, that he dismantles so many other things that we, good evening everybody on TikTok. He wants to dismantle all of those things that we've always heard, all of those things that we need a few minutes to get back on and make sure that they're getting all that they're supposed to receive on tonight. Okay. So now again, chapter 3 is where we are. Chapter 3 is where we are. Chapter 3 is where we are. So those of you who have the book, Bishop Carlton Pearson starts out by saying, all my life I believe that the Great Commission was each Christian's responsibility. We're supposed to go out and save the lost. Is that not what we're told in the church? We're always told that we should be about saving souls. Is that not what we've always been taught? All right, anybody raise your hand if that's what you've been taught. You were taught that this was your purpose, this was your ministry, this is what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be about the business of saving souls, okay? And so now with that, uh, that may not be exactly true. This is what Bishop Carlton Pearson wants us to get. Okay, and so now here, um, I just think it's quite interesting because he says this is considered the noblest cause of the church. And so it's considered, if you are out saving souls, if you are out, I guess, trying to uh, convert people and convert everybody that you come across, if you are able to change those folks and get people to see the light, that is what you should be about on today. Okay. And so we have to ask the question, is that the true purpose of what we should be doing today? Okay, and those who are on Facebook, let me know if I still have a signal there, because um, it's hard to try to manage everything and talk and teach a lesson at the same time. All right, so please let me know if I still have the um, the signal here. All right, so he says here, the daunting task of converting everyone to Christianity has been an aggravating itch for the greater part of my life, a consuming passion motivated by pride, guilt, fear, anxiety, compassion, and at times profound depression. And so, with this, oh, okay, thank you, Regina. With this mandate that we have taken on, it sometimes, Malik, good evening. It sometimes makes you feel as if you're not saving souls, that there's something going on. Um, if you're not saving souls, that there is something wrong with you. Okay, and so now it pushes you to a place sometimes of being in depression, because you feel like you might be letting God down. You feel like you might not be doing what you've been called to do by the church, and you're not satisfying what God believes you need to satisfy in order to continue as a Christian. Okay, and so it brings anxiety. And so this is what Bishop Carlton Pearson is telling us about here in chapter 3 at the beginning. Okay. And so he says at times it became his obsession. Any of y'all could admit that you were obsessed with saving folks? Y'all ain't gonna say nothing tonight. Anybody, let me see if TikTok people can say something. Anybody can admit that at some point in life you were obsessed with saving people. You felt that, hey, this person was going to hell and it was your job to save them. You felt that they were being misguided, they were being misled, and it was your job to save them. You felt that anybody who you saw walk past you that was not saved and sanctified and filled with the Holy Ghost, it was your job to save them. Y'all gonna tell the truth tonight? Do I have any people still on? Maybe my sound is not working tonight. But I just want to say that this is what Bishop Carlton Pearson is saying that he was struggling with. Okay, Sister Carolyn, this is what Bishop Pearson was saying that he was struggling with, and so many of us can become obsessed with this notion that we supposed to save everybody. We supposed to deliver everybody. Okay? And so this is what Bishop Pearson was saying. And so he says the responsibility of getting people saved has taken a severe toll on some of the most benevolent souls I have ever known. And so, if this is your forefront, if this is all you're thinking about, some other things that you could be doing, that you would be doing, you are so consumed with this that you're not doing the other things that God is really assigning you to do. Okay, and then again, he's going to go on and share with us that really it doesn't say this. The word does not specifically mandate us to save souls. Okay, so y'all stay tuned. Y'all stay with me. Okay, And so that's why I believe that the enemy didn't want this word to come out. But God is going to help us to get this word tonight. Okay. So now he said, um, for most of his life, he viewed many of the world religions as deviant, demonic. The folks weren't saved. Remember, if you grew up in the Church of God in Christ, they taught you that the other people were not saved. The other people were going to hell. Y'all remember? The Pentecostals felt that they were the only ones who had it right. The Pentecostals felt that they were the only ones going to heaven. And so naturally, he would feel that any other denomination was demonic. Anybody else that had any kind of faith besides the belief in the Church of God in Christ or in the Pentecostal tradition was going to hell. Okay, and that's how they were taught. And so we can't fault them on how they were taught, but that's what he grew up understanding. Okay, and so he asked doctrinally unacceptable questions about why God allowed the existence of religions that were presumably leading billions of people into an eternal torture chamber. And so you have to think, if you are a thinker, if you are a person who processes things, if you are a person who takes in certain things, you would ask a question, I believe, God, why are all these people supposedly going to hell? Okay, why are all these people allowed to be taught these other thoughts and theologies? And so there has to be something to it. So I want to ask you tonight, have you ever questioned anything that you were taught in the church? Have you ever questioned anything that you heard taught in Sunday school, that you heard the pastor preach about? Have you ever questioned any of those things? Because the problem is, so many of us just receive the information and we don't question anything. Okay? We just receive what is told to us and we go with it and we go running. But I want to say that there are some people who have questioned, well, why is it this way? Y'all remember when we talked about on here some time ago how they said women couldn't wear pants. Well, why is it women can't wear pants? Now that women are wearing pants in society, women wear pants in high power positions. Women wear pants to everything. Why is it women can't wear the pants to church? Okay, and then we question, why is it women can't wear red lipstick? Why is it women have to have their head covers? Women go in public without their head covers all the time today. What is that about? And so sometimes we do have to ask some questions about some of the things that we're being taught, some of the things that are being said. And then if you see other denominations, other religions that are not doing those same things, that are not being taught those same things, then you have to ask, well, why is it only my religion is teaching these things? Okay? And so those of you who are inquisitive, hopefully you ask some questions about some of the things that you were taught. Okay, and so Bishop Carlton Pearson goes on to give us numbers. Now, I like numbers. Any of y'all who like numbers and statistics, because for those non-believers, even though we're in a time now where even when you can have truth, you can have facts, some people still want to say that, it's not true, it's not correct. This is something that Donald Trump started. Want to question and make it seem as if everything that's factual is not. But I want to tell you, Bishop Carlton Pearson gives us some numbers, okay? He says of the over 6 billion people alive today, nearly 2 billion of those 6 billion are Christians. All right, so there's a lot of Christians out here. He says, and half of them, nearly 1 billion, are Roman Catholics. So out of the 2 billion Christians, you have 1 billion that are Roman Catholic, and the other 1 billion are Protestant. Okay, so those are the numbers. Now, he says, many of the 500 million Protestants don't accept Catholics as genuinely saved. So we always got somebody who we feel is not saved, don't we? And so he said they still see Roman Catholic Church as a deviant, corrupt, idolatrous aberration of Christianity that Martin Luther protested against. Okay, and so you have to know something about church history to know who Martin Luther is and the great protest he did, and that's why we're called Protestants today, because he did protest against the Roman Catholic Church and some things that they believed, and so you would have to go back and look up the name Martin Luther, okay? And that's where basically the Lutheran Church comes from. But we want you to go back and look up that name. Okay, so now he says the burning question evangelicals ask themselves is, how will we ever get all of these poor souls saved before Jesus returns and sends them all to hell? So the Roman Catholics want to know, or I should say the evangelicals, excuse me, want to know, how are we going to get all these people saved? And y'all know the evangelicals is a part of the problem today, okay? I'm not going to go there. I'll talk about that on another platform. But the evangelicals are about saving souls, and they are about the mission of making sure before Jesus returns that all of these folks that are not saved according to them are able to be saved. And so I love the fact that he brings that to us. And he talks about when Jesus returns, we know that that's called the second coming. And so we're taught that Jesus is coming for a church without defect or blemish. And that is from 1 Peter 1:19. And I'm so glad that Bishop Carlton Pearson here acknowledges that Christians have never been spotless. They've never been perfect. Okay? And so now, if that's who Jesus is coming for the second coming, then I'm not sure if Jesus is going to find anybody. That's just me. Okay, if he's coming for a church without blemish, if we take that literally, then Jesus might not be able to take anybody back when he comes. Okay, because people have faults. People have things that they've done. People have things that they're still doing. And people have things that they're going to do in the future. Okay? And so that is why we have grace. All right? That is why we can be forgiven. That is why we can repent. But what if Jesus comes? This is just Bishop Abrams now. What if Jesus comes on the day that we have not repented? Okay? So I'm just asking y'all some questions. Y'all ain't saying nothing tonight. All right? So I just want you to know that that's what we've been taught. And so Bishop Carlton Pearson here says, yet the guilt, the grief, and agony of saving the world before Jesus returns gnaws at the gut of every evangelical Christian. Okay, so now the evangelicals want to get you saved, but then they also believe that Jesus is coming for a spotless, perfect church. So now they got a lot of work to do if that's the case. Okay, so I just want y'all to know that that is what Bishop Pearson starts out talking about. Okay, and he's saying that consumes people's lives. If they're always thinking about ways and how they can get you saved and how they can keep you saved and keep you out of trouble and control your thoughts and make sure that you are not going against what Jesus teaches and what the Bible says, that consumes their thoughts. Okay, and so I need us to understand today that, that could be overwhelming. That could be overwhelming, especially if that's not something that we were told specifically to do. If it was a misinterpretation, and sometimes people get overwhelmed and consumed with misinterpretations. Okay? And so we have to understand that tonight. I want somebody to get that tonight. Y'all make sure that y'all are liking and sharing on tonight. Make sure you're liking and sharing, okay? Because this is a great lesson, and I want to make sure that we get people on for this lesson tonight, okay? So again, sometimes we are consumed with something that is not something that God said. And so we'll talk more about that. But sometimes we're consumed with something that is not something that God said. All right. And so how many times have we heard things and then later found out that it wasn't true. I mean, you did all you could. One example that I'm thinking about is when they would tell you, you weren't supposed to eat eggs because it was driving up your cholesterol. And so it said not to eat the yellow, okay? And then they found out the yellow wasn't really impacting your cholesterol at all. All right, so people did all kinds of things, changed their lives, turned their lives upside down to make sure they weren't eating the yellow, to make sure that they could reduce their cholesterol, to only find out later that that wasn't it at all. Okay, that's just an example. All right, and so when we think about it, there's some things that we may do that we believe or we were taught was something that God said, and it actually was not. And so that's what we're going to talk about a little bit more tonight. So here, Bishop Pearson said that he says, under the guise of this supposedly holy mission, are evangelicals actually committing a greater evil, neglecting families, sparking resentment in the so-called unsaved, and damaging their minds? He says, would we serve God better if we stopped trying to save others through evangelism and start saving them by example? Powerful statement. Powerful statement. So here he says that the evangelicals could be guilty of neglecting their families. Because again, if you're so consumed with, I guess, the mission of saving souls and making sure that you can point out who's doing something wrong and who is not doing what they're supposed to do and who has not submitted to Jesus Christ and who is living unholy, and you're so worried about everybody else that you are neglecting your own family. And then I'll never forget, sometimes it does bring up resentment for people because what happens is people begin to resent you if you're always trying to point out their faults. And if you're always telling them how they're going to hell and how they're not going to see Jesus in the end and how they're not going to be blessed by God and how God is unpleased with them, they do begin to resent you, and they at some point begin to avoid you. All right. And so if the evangelicals, if that's their whole mission, then, they obviously are consumed and possessed with this. And so therefore, there's some things that are lacking in their lives. Okay. And so good evening to those who are coming on to TikTok. And so with that now, I want to say that it's important that we think about, would we serve God better if we stopped trying to save others through evangelism and started saving them by example? Wonderful statement. I believe personally that we would do a better job because, yes, Chuck, we would do a better job with our example because, people could look at your life. People could look at how God is blessing you and the things that Jesus is doing for you and how, compassionate you are, how loving you are, how kind you are. And they would be drawn to that as opposed to you beating them over the brow and always telling them that they need to be saved. Okay. And so I'm reminded of that. I'm reminded in hearing that statement, I'm reminded of how persons treat those in the LGBT community. There's so much resentment for the church because of how church people have treated those in the LGBT community. And so, I think it would be better served by example versus by people trying to always evangelize. Okay. And so this is what Bishop Carlton Pearson says here. So now he goes on to tell us, what is Christianity? We all want to say we Christians. We all want to say that, we believe in Jesus. We follow Jesus. What exactly is Christianity? So Bishop Pearson tackles this topic. And so I told y'all this was going to be a good topic tonight. That's why we had some problems on Facebook and YouTube. And, our numbers are a little bit lower on TikTok. Y'all help us to get to 2,000. So 2,000 likes so we can get on the FYP. But, he's going to tackle Christianity. So in the early 4th century, he says, the Roman Emperor Constantine, y'all have heard that name before, in an effort to unify his empire, used Christianity as his tool. So now, can we see how people manipulate Christians today also? And so back then, it wasn't like they had an opportunity to just volunteer. Some of the people were forced to be Christian back then. And so Bishop Pearson says it was formed initially to promote the message and gospel of Jesus Christ, including his death and resurrection and the redemption of humankind to God. So initially, that's what Christianity was about, okay? The word Christianity derives from the Latin word Christ, which is translation of the Hebrew word Mashiach, in English, which is Messiah. Okay, Christ means anointed, anointed one, and so the word Christianity does not appear anywhere in the Bible. Okay, Bishop Carlton Pearson says the word Christianity does not appear anywhere in the Bible. So those of you who are scholars, those of you who are researchers, y'all go and look it up. The word Christianity does not appear anywhere in the Bible. So I want y'all to look it up, and if you find it, please inbox me, send me a note, and say, Bishop, I don't think Bishop Carlton Pearson had that right. Okay. And so he says the word Christianity does not appear anywhere in the Bible. The word Christian or Christians is only mentioned in 3 places in the Bible. And he gives it to us as Acts 11:24, and then you have Acts 26 verse 28, and 1 Peter 4:16. And 2 of those were by non-Christians, and only one was by a Christian. So he reminds us Jesus was not a Christian. He was a Jew. His parents, disciples, and nearly all the followers of Jesus during this biblical time were Jewish. Okay? So, again, Christianity, for those who are just coming on, is not in the Bible. Okay? And Jesus was a Jew. So, I think he wants us to loosen up just a little bit. Okay? Loosen up just a little bit. Okay? So now, we know where Jesus was during that time, and he's saying the dominant religion in Israel during the days when Jesus walked his dusty roads was Judaism. Okay, Christianity was an unwelcome invader. So the people did not want to deal with the Christians during that time. And so Judaism was the religion during that time. And so it challenged cherished Jewish customs and hope for a Messiah. So those of you who have Jewish friends today, if you talk with them, you'll understand that Jesus of Nazareth was not the Messiah Jewish leaders were looking for, and still isn't. So if you talk to a Jewish individual today, they will tell you they don't believe that the Messiah has come. Okay? Because they don't believe that Jesus was the Messiah. Okay? Again, Jesus was a Jew just like them. And so they don't believe that Jesus was the Messiah that is expected to come. And so the Jews are still waiting on their Messiah. Okay? The Christians believe that we already have our Messiah. Okay, so we want to make sure we understand those things. Do I have anybody still on Facebook? Because I don't see any comments on Facebook. Okay, but again, I told you that this is going to be a profound lesson, and Bishop Carlton Pearson gives us a lot here in chapter 3, and I just know that that's why we're at only half of our people that we normally have on. So help us to get people back on here by hitting like on on TikTok, and make sure that you share on Facebook and YouTube. All right, so here we have he also gives us this, and I thought this was good. Thank you, Regina. Thank you, Deacon Kim. The signal keeps freezing. Okay, so that's what it is. Okay. So here, Bishop Pearson says Jesus never intended to start a religion. He seems to have sought to reform his own. So Jesus wasn't trying to start no Baptist church. Jesus wasn't trying to start any kind of church. He wasn't trying to start no denominations, wasn't trying to start no religions. Jesus was about, according to Bishop Pearson, reforming his own. Okay. And so you just heard that Judaism was what the Jewish people were during these biblical days. Okay. Thank you, Sister Carolyn. All right. So now, when you talk about Christianity, because again, Bishop Carlton Pearson is talking about Christianity here. When you talk about Christianity, is it prophet or prophet? Okay, prophet, prophet, or profit. Okay, so which one is it? So we're going to talk about that. Again, help us to get some people on the live tonight. Those who are on TikTok, we need you to make sure you are pressing like. And those who are on Facebook and YouTube, make sure that you are sharing. And you can also hit like. Okay. Now we want to look at, is this about profit? Profit, or profit, prophet. All right. And I think this is a very worthy topic for us to look at and think about tonight, because oftentimes we're thinking that, you know, the church is not about profit. And in actuality, it is. So he tells us in Acts 11:26, we find the reference to Christians. And it says the disciples were called Christians first at Antioch. So there was something that happened there at Antioch that the disciples were then named or called Christians. Okay, so the Greek word for called used in this instance is chromatizo. And so when you look at Vine's Greek lexicon, it's usually relating to conducting business dealings. So when someone is called, it's usually related to business dealings. So in Vine's Greek lexicon, in the old vernacular, which is what we're looking at here, that is referencing people who have business dealings. Okay, and so if you had to parallel it today with English terms, it would be doing business as, or DBA. Okay, so when you are called, you are doing business or doing business as. Okay, so the disciples were regarded as doing the business of Christianity. Okay, disciples again were regarded as doing the business of Christianity. All right, so I just want to make sure that you all get that tonight. The disciples, Bishop Carlton Pearson is giving us information here and saying that the disciples were regarded as doing business of Christianity. The early disciples had begun to make a living out of following Christ. Go figure. Okay, so the early disciples, according to Bishop Carlton Pearson's research, good evening, Bishop Bonnie. According to Bishop Carlton Pearson's research, he says that they were making a living out of following Christ. Now, some people today would have a problem with that. But Bishop Pearson here is helping us, is raising our understanding and helping us to know that there was absolutely nothing wrong with them earning a living or making a living out of following Christ. Because when you talk about called, it is doing business or doing business as. Okay. And so I just want you to understand that. So he says the lexicon explains they were publicly called Christians because this was their chief business or chief operation. Okay. So now, some of y'all have been earning a living as a Christian, earning a living as one who is called. And there should not be any problem with that. Okay? There should not be. But because of some of the misteachings and misunderstandings in the church today, we have a problem with people who are making money off of the church or off of their understanding. If somebody decides to hold a conference and teach on, let's just say, the book of Acts and teach all the books of the Bible. You know, they tell you can come to one and come to another one in the afternoon. Come to one in the morning, come to another in the afternoon. Somebody might have a problem with that, saying they're making money off of the Christians, making money off of the church. Well, here you have an example of where this is exactly what the disciples were doing. Okay. And so some of us have got to expand our understanding, and we've got to grow and stretch and realize that there's absolutely nothing wrong with this. Okay. And so I wanted to make sure we got that, because Bishop Pearson wanted to make sure we got that in this lesson here. That's why he put it in the book. Okay. So in the most telling etymological evidence, the term is used in only one other place in the New Testament in this manner, and that's the term where he talks about being called, referring to a divorced woman remarrying and making her living as an adulteress. Okay, so early Christians referred to themselves as disciples, as saints, or the ecclesia, Greek for the called or called out ones, meaning they were called out of spiritual darkness into the light and committed to Christ. Okay, so now here we have where they began to call themselves disciples. Okay, so early Christians were calling themselves disciples. They call themselves saints. Some of y'all joke about, they call themselves saints. They shouldn't be calling themselves that. Well, the early Christians did that according to Bishop Pearson's study. So if you feel like calling yourself a saint, you have every right to do that. Okay. And so we have to understand that some of the things have gotten lost along the way. And I appreciate Bishop Carlton Pearson bringing these back to our remembrance. Okay. So I want to move on here because y'all know it takes me a long time to get through anything. And we're just on the second page of chapter 3. Okay. Anybody just joining us? We're in chapter 3 of Bishop Carlton Pearson's book, The Gospel of Inclusion. Okay. And so I need y'all to get the book. Y'all have had plenty of time to get this book. We started in January. I need y'all to get the book. Order it. Make sure you have it. You can put it on your Amazon Kindle. You can put it on your shelf if you want to get the hard copy. Okay. But please make sure you have the book so that you can read along, because I'm just trying to highlight some things for you. All right. And so I want to move to the other point I was going to make. Yes. So he says, in Bible school, I was taught that Constantine was a born-again Christian who, while at the Battle of Milvian Bridge, converted to Christianity after he miraculously, see, I told y'all the enemy was busy. Now, my TikTok group, the phone has overheated, okay, which it never does. So, all right. So, prayerfully, those folks will come over to the Facebook or YouTube. All right. I tell you, this is a good lesson. Thank you, Bishop Pearson. I need you to, from the other side, cover all the platforms. Okay. And so he says here, this is where Christian militarism began. It remains a huge characteristic of Christian consciousness, especially in the West. And so Constantine supposedly miraculously saw the sign of the cross in a cloud formation at this battle. Okay, and so now he was saying, Bishop Carlton Pearson was saying to us that Constantine was used by God Constantine was used by God to stop the horrendous persecution of Christians, that he ultimately made Christianity the state religion throughout the Roman Empire. Now, I heard that as well. I came up in the Baptist church, and so they had lots of things that they were teaching that were not necessarily true. Okay, and so he corrects that here. Okay, he says, however, study shows that Constantine more than likely was baptized on his deathbed rather than undergoing a dramatic conversion. Okay. So we always hear these different things about people that are not necessarily true. That's why it's so important to study. That's why it's so important to read, get an understanding. That's why it's so important to make sure that we read for ourselves and don't just listen and believe everything other people say. That's why I always tell you, make sure you get the book. Make sure you read along. Make sure you can see the points that I'm highlighting because you've already read it in the book. Okay. And so I want you to make sure that you are reading along each week. Um, so he says the cross in the sky is a bedtime story. Okay, so Constantine seeing the cross in the sky during the battle there was just a bedtime story because he really was converted at the end of his life. Okay, however, it was not necessarily a commitment to Christ that caused him to make Christianity his religion. It was a political move. And so that was very eye opening here. That Constantine's objective was to merge Christianity with the pagan religion embraced by the Roman culture. He wanted to unify his empire, which seemed destined to split because there were so many Christians and Christianity was coming up, and so many people were determining that they wanted to follow and be a follower of Christ. Okay, so it was a political move. And so sometimes I hear people all the time at Easter griping and complaining about, oh, well, why is it that we have these pagan things that we're doing? And Christmas, why do we have these pagan things that we're doing? That all goes back to Constantine. And now we understand it was politics for Constantine. Thank you, DIT. It was politics for Constantine. Yes, TikTok went down because the screen, for some reason, said it was overheating. I'm not sure what that was about. But let me see if I can get it back on TikTok. Thank you for letting me know. We're going to resume that and see if we can get it back. So we'll see if any people come back in. So Constantine, again, this was politics. He wanted to save his empire. He did not want the empire to split. And therefore, he decided, okay, I got these Christians over here, have these pagans over here. Let's merge them, put everything together, and force everybody to be together so that, I can save myself and save my empire. Okay, and in essence, it was about him. Okay, so it was political, and so that is why you have at Easter we preach that it's about the death and bodily resurrection of Jesus Christ, but then also you have people who are very focused on the Easter bunny, focused on the Easter egg hunts, and those types of things, and so that's why you have that. And at Christmas you have the tree. And so, this is where that comes from. So anybody who wanted to know, didn't know, this is where that comes from. Okay. Here, Bishop Pearson informs us that, did I lose my place? Okay, so here we are. He says, if the love of money is the root of all evil, which we get in 1 Timothy chapter 6, verses 10, then that evil was personified in the emerging religion under Constantine. Okay, and so he and Christian leaders manipulated power. They manipulated money, sexual repression to control people who depended on all three in complex ways. All right. And so, again, history is very important, and we cannot be afraid to read our history, understand history, and to know that church was always about spirituality. There are other things that caused us to get to where we are on today, even down to, Sunday being the day set aside for church. Okay, so I just want people to understand that it wasn't always God coming down and saying, hey, I want all the worshipers to worship on Sunday. I want everybody to worship, at 11 o'clock. I want everybody. No, these were people making decisions for others. Okay, and that is why we have some of the things that we have today. Remember, I talked about a lot of things we do in the church is not about what God said. It's about tradition. It's about, people continuing to do things that they've always done. It's about continuing the practices and passing things down. It's not necessarily what Bible says. I remember I said that in my church I pastored in Detroit many years ago, and the people kind of looked at me strangely, but I want you to understand that everything that happens in the church is not because it's something that God has instructed us to do in the Bible. A lot of it is tradition, and it's just practices and rituals that people have decided needs to be done in the church. Okay? And so I want us to be the wiser, and that's why we always come on and we make sure you have have these teachings and you can get an understanding. Okay? Now, I'm out of time, but I want to take about 15 more minutes because of the fact that the system went down, and the enemy's just been trying to stop us from getting this lesson taught tonight. Okay, since the religions of the world have discovered and ruthlessly exploited Constantine's secret to accumulating vast wealth, controlling the minds of numberless masses who are kept in ignorance. Even when the motivation for giving is for benevolent causes, oftentimes people's generosity is spurred by guilt or by the desire to avoid hell. So a lot of times, and I love that he brought this up, a lot of times people are manipulated to give or to do certain things with the threat that you're going to burn in hell for eternity, with the threat that God doesn't love you, with the threat that your prayers are not going to get through, with the threat that, God's not going to respond to anything, God's not going to bless you. And, it's unfair to manipulate people with those types of things, but it happens all the time. Okay, and Bishop Carlton Pearson does an outstanding job addressing this in this particular book. And this is why many people in the church were upset with Bishop Pearson, because he had revelation and he had a rhema word which he gave and released in this book, which is to help us to come out of some of the mindsets which we have, and some of the hatred and some of the anger and some of the things that we're doing that are not pleasing to God, okay, as a church, as a body, the body of Christ. And so we want to make sure that we are, once again, getting this book and reading it. Now, lastly, I want to talk about this, and then I'm gonna have to, move on. Okay, so now, today we're still doing what Martin Luther protested: selling indulgences. Okay. This particular part, if you have the book, Bishop Carlton's book, this is the part where he says selling tickets out of hell. Okay. Now, I remember when I went to seminary, and look, when I went to seminary, I was fresh out of the Baptist church. Okay, so y'all know I've been Baptist forever. We're now a part of UCC, but when I went to seminary, good evening to all those who are coming on to TikTok. When I went to seminary, I heard about the purgatory. So I was so upset with that whole purgatory notion. Those of you who are in the Catholic Church, you know what I'm talking about, who's ever been to Catholic Church, or maybe you've been to Catholic school. But that really bothered me, the whole purgatory thing. But if we just even listen to what Bishop Pearson talked about tonight, or the book talks about tonight, we can understand how the Catholic Church got away with purgatory for so many years. Okay? Because if we are selling fear, if we're selling and pushing people to a place of anxiety, and if we're pushing people to a place where We make them think that God is not going to love you if you don't do this, and God is not going to hear your prayers if you don't do this, and there's going to be a problem, something blocking you and God, standing in between you and God. Then naturally, we can see how purgatory would work very well. Because purgatory was where the Catholic Church told the members that if your loved one dies and they were not right with God, they may be stuck in this one place, and they won't be able to get over to heaven. Okay, and so now if you pay some money, you will be able to make it right for them, and they'll be able to go to that place that all of them have wanted to go to. Okay, and so now that is a type of stuff they were selling in the Catholic Church. Okay, and so now if there's a Catholic who's watching, if you want to say it a little differently, please type it in the chat for me. But this is what they were selling. Okay, and many people were concerned about their loved ones. They did not want their loved one to be in this stagnant place. They wanted them to go to their place of peace, their place of rest, their place where there would be no more pain. Okay, and so the Catholic Church was saying that, hey, your loved one is not going to get there, and because because of what they did in their lives. And so again, those people who were here with me in the beginning, Bishop Pearson talked about the evangelicals. Their whole mission is to make sure that they're saving souls. And they would get obsessed with that. He said he was obsessed with it sometimes, possessed, about saving souls, because Christ was coming back for a church without blemish, a perfect church. And so now remember, I told you there's none perfect. And so Christ was going to come back and wasn't nobody going to be available if that was the case, because we don't have any perfect people. And people have done things, and people are always doing things, and they're going to do things in times to come. Okay? And so we want to make sure that we understand and we don't put that much pressure on ourselves. Okay? However, we can understand now how the Catholic Church was able to get away with purgatory, because if we understand that our family members were not perfect, but they needed to be, and we're concerned with their eternal, where they're going to spend eternity, then yes, we'll pay $10,000. Yes, we'll pay $20,000 because we want them to get to this place. And so now Bishop Carlton Pearson introduces this selling tickets out of hell. Okay. And so I just want to make sure that we understand some of the things that have been going on in the church over the years. Okay. Good evening, Nettie, and good evening to Reverend Dr. Clifford. And so these things have been happening in the church over the years. So today, he says we are still selling indulgences. As long as people are willing to buy their way out of hell, someone is going to sell them a ticket. Okay? And so we feel that we can pay our way to get to a different place, then we're going to keep having folks who can sell us a ticket. Again, when I went to seminary, that bothered me, that people were willing to pay, money to supposedly get their family member to cross over into this other place. Okay, this place of peace, this place of rest, this place that, they couldn't get to on their own, in their own life and on their own works, in their own deeds. Okay, so he says, I have no intention of making a vow of poverty. However, greed disguised as ministry is a cancer in the evangelical community and in organized religion overall. So he's saying there's some greedy folks in the church today, greedy folks in religion, greedy folks in the name of God. There's some greedy people today. And so it's not saying that you have to be broke, but you don't always have to take from the people. I believe this is what Bishop Carlton Pearson is saying today. And so he says, religion is a multi-trillion-dollar business. Now, remember I said called means to do business. And so the disciples were doing business as Christians. Okay, for those who are just coming on. So we're looking at what it says in chapter 3 of the Gospel of Inclusion. Okay, so now religion is a multi-trillion-dollar business. There's some folks who are making some real money in this. People will pay almost anything to feel better about themselves, to feel that God is pleased with them. I remember one day I was watching Pastor Creflo Dollar's ministry. This was many, many, many years ago before I pastored a church. But I was watching his ministry, and I remember the people started putting money up on the steps. Now, there's nothing wrong with people if they choose to put money on the steps, but did they feel guilted into putting money on the steps? Did they feel as if they were going to miss out on something if they didn't put the money on the steps? Did they feel as if God was going to leave them, look over them, not bless them if they did not put money on the steps? And so again, we have to see what is being said or done to push us to a place of feeling guilty and feeling needing to feel better about ourselves, and thus feeling as if we can buy peace in our hearts, buy peace in our souls, or buy peace, buy comfort. Okay, and like you said, people will do anything to feel better about themselves. Again, some of you know that I pastored in Detroit for many years, and so I remember when I was an associate minister, I remember going to one of the conferences of Bishop back then, Pastor Marvin Winans, and so there were people who felt as if they needed to come and I guess make sure that they were giving money on the floor when the appeal was made, that if you wanted to have riches, if you wanted to be blessed, if you wanted, certain things, you had to give, or they were asking for you to hear God and give a certain amount of money. And so, all the people that got up, I was just wondering if these people felt guilted into getting up. And so there are people who do that. And this is basically what Bishop Carlton Pearson is letting us know here. Okay. So I'm going to, in 2 minutes, I just want to make a couple of more statements from this particular section here. He says, Christians, unfortunately, this vulnerability has given rise to abuse. The merchandising of religion threatens the peace and safety of the world. He understands that Christians need to generate money to operate their ministries, but all too often the ability to generate this money requires the spread of ignorance and intolerance that threatens what faith purports to save. And so, a lot of times we see that people harp on certain things, and they harp on, you cannot tolerate this, you cannot support this, you cannot deal with this. And they continue to say those types of things in order to get people to give. And it should not be that you have to promote hatred, you have to promote intolerance, and you have to threaten people in order for your ministry to thrive. Okay? He says here, worship is in our DNA. I love that, love that, love that. Worship is in our DNA. That's who we are. And so we all look to a source, force, or power greater than ourselves. If we transcend our religious bigotry, we would be surprised at how similar we really are. So we want to make sure that we are getting the book again, we are reading, and we are taking time to process all that Bishop Carlton Pearson is saying to us here in this particular chapter. So, again, we want to make sure we give you the opportunity to give. Those of you who heard me talking about being a donor or being a sponsor or being a patron, We did that at the beginning of the live. You can give on Cash App, $ ELC Church. We ask you to be a patron for ELC for our 10-year anniversary. You can be a patron at $40, $50, $100. We ask that you would give at $ ELC Church. And we also ask that you would go on to Tidely. That is 833-717-0242. Type the word give. Look, your name, we're putting all patrons in our anniversary souvenir booklet. So if you are able to be a patron, please do send $30, $40, $50 to $ELC Church. That's Cash App. You can give on Givelify at Empowerment Liberation Cathedral. Or you can, again, give on Tidely at 833-717-0242. Don't forget to type the word give. Again, our anniversary is May the 6th, the first Sunday in May. And so we invite you to come and share with us. That's May the 5th. We invite you to come and share with us at Empowerment Liberation Cathedral at 11 a.m. for our 10-year anniversary. God has blessed us to be able to still be here, still standing after 10 years. And so we're so thankful for that. So again, Cash App, $ELC Church, $ELC Church. Let us have our prayer for over our offering. Gracious, kind God, we just thank you for the givers on tonight. We thank you for all of those who are sowing a seed. Thank you for every patron tonight. Thank you for every sponsor tonight. Thank you for the givers. God, we ask that this money might be used for your purpose and your plan and for the upbuilding of your kingdom. God, we thank you for those who are friends of ELC, those who are supporters of ELC, and those who are members of ELC. Thank you for each and every one of them. God, I ask that you continue to bless them and return their givings to them 100-fold. This is our prayer. We lift you in Jesus' most precious holy name. We do pray. Amen and thank God. Well, thank you so much for attending our Word Wednesday on tonight. We do ask that you would meet us in the sanctuary on Sunday. We are in person every first and third Sunday. Please meet us in the sanctuary at 11 a.m. If you are out of state, out of town, you can always tune in at 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central, 8 a.m. Pacific time for our worship experience on Sundays. Again, don't forget to download the book. Bishop Carlton Pearson is the author. The name of the book is The Gospel of Inclusion. The Gospel of Inclusion. Again, thank you so much. God bless you. God keep you. And may God continue to smile upon each and every one of you. Good night, good night, good night. Our theme for tonight and for this year is, this is the year of unusual, uncommon, and immeasurable blessings. Once again, this is the year of uncommon, unusual, and immeasurable blessings. God bless you. Good night.